Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 1, I Was an Outcast Liege. Chapter 28, Drunk in the Alley. The autumn rain in Chu capital have never stopped falling since the new emperor ascended to the throne. If one were to stand atop the high boundary of the palace compound, all one would see was the coal black of old tile roofs and bright lanterns hanging high above the streets. A bleak chill shrouding the whole of the city. In the aftermath of the autumn hunt incident, all the Jinyue had been stripped of their authority tokens. Jinyue of 5th rank and above such as Ji Lei and Jiao Tanya were all imprisoned together with Hua Saiqian and Pan Rogui. They were handed over to be tried in a joint trial by the 3 judicial offices. Xue Zhuo was transferred from the Office of Revenue Oversight and promoted to the position of Assistant Minister in the Court of Judicial Review. This position did not seem to have as much authority and power as the Chief Supervising Secretary of the Office of Scrutiny for Revenue, but in truth, it gave him an entry to the central administration of the 3 judicial offices. In other words, he not only had the authority to examine any case reviews, but also had the power to participate in the deliberations and rebuttals of proposals from the Ministry of Justice and the Chief Surveillance Bureau. Xue Zhuo. Empress Dowager Hua reclined against a small couch and idly tapped the jet black jade wiki piece against the board. I have never heard of this child before the Nanlin hunting grounds incident. Who is he to the Xue clan? Madame Liege gently fanned the incense censer and said, replying to your majesty, he is the 3rd son of a concubine of the Xue clan. This servant has never heard of this person before, and so this servant specifically went to make some inquiries about him. The Xue clan has no lack of successors. Empress Dowager Hua said. All these years, Yao Wenyu is the one in the forefront. I thought that old fox, Hai Lianji, would sooner or later recommend Yao Wenyu into the Grand Secretariat after having imparted all his knowledge to him. Who would have expected him to remain silent on it and use the unremarkable Xue Zhuo instead? Madame Lixiang said, Xue Zhuo first joined forces with the Provincial Administration Commissioner of Juexi, Zhang Qingshan, to gather evidence on the sly, then joined up with Secretariat Elder Hai to act as a go-between. He had access to the 6 ministries when he held office as the Chief Supervising Secretary of the Office of Revenue Oversight. Now he has been promoted to Assistant Minister of the Court of Judicial Review, he will be hearing the case of our Secretariat Elder. This servant fears that he has made up his mind to get to the bottom of the matter and won't be easily persuaded otherwise. At present, I cannot leave these grounds. Empress Dowager Hua looked contemplative. If Xue Zhuo wants to investigate, then let him investigate. The Hua clan is already at such a critical juncture. Go and tell eldest brother that he needs to have the determination to act decisively and cut his losses. Only then will we be able to stage a comeback. Madame Lixiang uttered an acknowledgement and quietly withdrew. Asterisk. Shenzhequan shook the rainwater off his umbrella and sat in the run-down veranda of the deserted courtyard. Less than an hour later, Shi Hongxuan's mountain-like figure strode through the moon gate and walked over to him while holding up an umbrella. The streets were full of informants nowadays. I almost couldn't get away. Shi Hongxian wrapped his coat around himself and frowned as he asked. What's so urgent that you have to call me over at a time like this? Shi Guan is in prison. Shenzhequan said. Your long-time wish is right before you. Yet you aren't pressing home the attack now following the victory. Are you waiting for him to take a desperate action instead? His guilt of committing a capital offense is already but certain. Shi Hongxian said. Making any more moves now would be like drawing legs on a snake, quite redundant. Nothing in this world is certain. There was no trace of a smile on Shenzhequan's fair face. He said, the more critical the situation is, the more you cannot afford to be negligent. As long as he remains alive in this dangerous situation, there's a chance he will survive through it. Shi Hongxian looked at his side profile and said, the Hua faction case has already been handed over to the 3 judicial offices. With so many pairs of eyes staring, how are you planning to make your move? I'm not making any moves. Shenzhen turned his eyes at him. As the Hua clan's lackey, his crimes during his term of office are too numerous to record. As long as one or two documented proofs is handed over to the three judicial offices, then his death will be all but certain. Bearing a weapon before the emperor and trapping the crown prince in to hunt him down. These two matters aren't enough to put him to death. As the commander-in-chief of the 8 great training divisions, he has the special exemption to be allowed to carry weapon in front of the emperor. The siege on the crown prince had nothing to do with him. He could simply assert that he headed back to the capital to seek and deploy reinforcements on seeing the situation had gone wrong. The new emperor now has his reservations about the Jinyi way. Although the Hua clan has been taken down, the fact remained that he needed the support of the 8 great training divisions. A full review of this case by the 3 judicial offices will be time-consuming. The longer this drags on, the harder it will be for Shiguan to die. Shenzhen sneered a little. As long as Shiguan doesn't die, you will remain the second young master Shi and will never step to the forefront. After a lengthy silence, Shi Hongxian asked, "What do you want me to do?" Shiguan has been assigned to take sole charge of the 8 great training divisions since the 4th year of the Xian era. In the 4 years so far, the 8 great training divisions have received a total of 9 million taels of military funds and provisions. Only 7 million taels of the disbursement were accounted for. Where did the remaining 2 million taels go? They all disappeared after they passed through Shiguan's hands. Shenzhen said, "The audits of the account books are originally handled by Shui Ziozhuo. In all likelihood, he will still be able to dig out more invalid expenses once he checks. Both Pan Rugui and Hua Saiqian might get away with pocketing such a large amount because they are just greedy and corrupt. But Shiguan can't. He cannot afford to be greedy or corrupt. Control of the 8 great training divisions, whose main task is to patrol and defend the Chu capital, lies in his hands. If he can't explain the whereabouts of all that money, then one could only suspect that he has been embezzling money to bribe the soldiers and to raise his own private army under the name of the 8 great training divisions." A chill suddenly ran down Shi Hongxian's back. He said, "Raise his own private army." As someone in such close proximity to the Son of Heaven, what could he possibly want a private army for? Shenzhen said. "No way." Shi Hongxian vetoed it at once as he wiped the sheen of sweat from his face as he said, "Do you think I'm out of my mind? If it's just associating with the Hua clan, then he's the only one who will die. But if it's harboring the intent to rebel, then my whole family will be executed. It's a crime punishable by extermination of the entire clan." Shenzhen laughed aloud and lowered his voice. "A change of sovereign brings a change of ministers. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to distinguish yourself now that a new emperor has ascended to the throne. This is just Shiguan giving you his life as a congratulatory gift for your promotion." "You want me to?" Shi Hongxian stared at Shenzhen for a while and suddenly burst out laughing. He said, "You are really vicious. At the very least, the Empress Dowager has saved you twice. You really show no regard for the kindness shown to you." "Kindness, huh?" Shenzhen picked up the umbrella. "When the ones who need to die are dead, then there will still be time for that afterwards. What's more, the power struggle today is all a game of weiqi between the Xiao and the Hua. What does it have to do with me?" With that, he opened his umbrella and nodded slightly at Shi Hongxian. Then, he stepped into the rainy evening. Shi Hongxian sat alone in the veranda. After Shenzhen disappeared, he touched his own back, finding it all drenched in cold sweat. ******. A few days later, the Court of Judicial Review re-examined the autumn hunt case. Zhang Xie, the chief minister of the Court of Judicial Review, served as the principal examiner, while Hai Lianji served as the supervisor, and Shui Ziozhuo sat in as assistant examiner. This was a major case examined and prosecuted by the Chief Surveillance Bureau, with the criminal charges of unconstitutional formation of an insurgent faction, embezzlement of taxes to corrupt governance, and endangerment of the state, submitted to the Court of Judicial Review. Of these, unconstitutional formation of an insurgent faction made the 6 ministries jittery. Every official who had been a guest at the Hua residence, or have received recommendations from Hua Saiqian and Pan Rugui in the past, all found themselves in a precarious position. Countless officials submitted memorials to denounce and report Hua Saiqian and Pan Rugui these few days, with each one making an impassioned declaration of loyalty to the court for fear of getting implicated. Seeing those memorials gave Liege Unhung a headache. He was not a person who could sit still to begin with. Even so, he did not dare to fool around during a time where the entire nation was in national mourning. He had seen the way Lianji confronted Hua Saiqian that night, thus, he was very much afraid of Lianji. Lianji was rigid and inflexible. His appropriately trimmed beard was always hanging before the second clasp on the front of his robe, while his crown was properly worn, and his hair, meticulously combed. He never left his clothes loose during the 3 hottest periods of summer, and he never folded his arms during the severe winter months. When he stood, he was like a verdant pine tree on the mountain ridge, and when he walked, he breezed by like a draught in a still valley. He never dragged his feet when it came to handling matters. He could even listen attentively to the details of the case for 3 days and 3 nights without showing any traces of weariness. Liege Unhung was used to fooling around. So, he always went weak in the knees on seeing this kind of elder, scholar-teacher-like minister. Because of the Hua faction case, Lianji was constantly looking for him to report the details. Liege Unhung found the dragon throne in Mingli Hall so hard that his butt was always hurting from sitting too long, so he got his men to pad it up with several layers of cotton-padded mattress. But Lianji saw it and remonstrated him, advising him to be steadfast in his conduct. The thrill of having power and authority in his grasp seemed fleeting. What followed right after was an avalanche of heavy responsibilities. The never-ending morning court sessions made it difficult for Liege Unhung to persevere. He sat on the dragon throne, sometimes not even understanding what those people at the foot of his throne were arguing about. No money. Then, collect taxes. Kill a bunch of corrupt officials, and the money could be recovered. No. What's there to argue about? Liege Unhung did not dare to reveal his innermost thoughts though. He was afraid of Lianji, and even more afraid of these civil servants and military commanders. He did not know what they were fighting about, or why the Hua faction could not be executed immediately by decapitation, let alone what the Empress Dowager's intention in sending him snacks every day was. He huddled up on the dragon throne, as if he were merely having a dream. Is His Majesty ill? Having been summoned, Xiao Qiye entered the palace and met the imperial physician from the Imperial Academy of Medicine outside Mingli Hall. The imperial physician said, he was worrying too much, and the autumn chill has gotten to him. When the viceroy enters later, please persuade His Majesty to mind his health. Xiao Qiye took off Longli blade and strode into Mingli Hall. Liege Unhung had just taken his medicine and was being dazed on the couch at the moment. On hearing that Xiao Qiye had come, he hurriedly wore his shoes like slippers and called Xiao Qiye to enter. "See Ian," Liege Unhung said. "You're just in time. The Imperial Bakery will send the silk-nested tiger's eye candy later. Come and try it too. We had it at the official banquet a few years ago." Xiao Qiye kowtowed and said, "Thank you for the treat, Your Majesty." With his clothes draped around him, Liege Unhung went silent for a moment, then said, "See Ian, take a seat." Xiao Qiye sat down, and those serving at the sides withdrew. Liege Unhung suddenly stood up and restlessly turned around in circles where he was. He said, "See Ian, why aren't they beheading Hua Saiqian yet? What retrial is the Court of Judicial Review talking about? What else is there for them to go over?" "Arg." Xiao Qiye said, "The Court of Judicial Review has to triple-check the case. This is the rule to ensure that justice is being served properly. The evidence against Hua Saiqian is conclusive. he will definitely be executed by decapitation before the new year. The longer we wait, the more things could go wrong, Liege Unhung said nervously. The Empress Dowager doesn't look like she's in a panic. You know, she keeps sending people to deliver snacks to me every day. What is she trying to do? Does she want to poison me to death, too? The Hua clan is currently the target of public criticism. So, the Empress Dowager has to at least put up the appearance of an affectionate parent. Seeing Li Jianheng's flustered expression with dark circles under his eyes, Xiao Qiye asked, "Is your Majesty not sleeping well at night?" "How can I sleep?" Li Jianheng said, "They aren't dead yet. So how would I be able to sleep?" "Cian, go tell Hai Lianji on my behalf to skip the retrial and carry out the execution on the spot." "How could they do that?" Xiao Qiye was the viceroy of the imperial army. He had nothing to do with the 3 judicial offices, so how could he interfere in the joint trial by the 3 judicial offices? Moreover, after what happened at the autumn hunt, the next person they would be targeting would be Xiao Qiye himself. The civil officials with Hai Lianji at the head, were unwilling to let Xiao Qiye go. Xiao Fangxiu himself had gotten wind of it in these few days as well. No one was willing to take a gamble when it came to this matter. Only if Xiao Qiye was in the Chu capital would Liege be sure to be diligent in anything they asked of them. The crisis in the 6 prefectures of Zongbo was a constant point of unease in the capital. Xiao Jiming could save the Chu capital once or twice, but could he save the Chu capital countless times without reservation? Even if he could, who would believe it? Xiao Qiye would definitely not get entangled in any disputes with the civil servants at this point in time. Li Jianheng himself knew that it would not work, so he became more and more dispirited. When the silk-nested tiger's eye candy was sent over, he took a few cursory bites of it, but he hardly tasted them at all. As soon as Xiao Qiye left, he lay on the couch again and thought to himself what a dumb and pointless thing being an emperor is. Xuanglu, who had been serving him closely since the beginning of all this, read his mood. He kneeled beside the bed and whispered, "Your Majesty. How about this slave accompanies you out for a stroll?" Li Jianheng replied, "Not going. I'm tired." Xuanglu hit upon an idea and continued, "Then how about inviting Lady Muru to play the pipa for your Majesty?" Li Jianheng turned over and took another glance outside. Seeing no one, he said, "Zhen can't do that. The nation is in mourning. Besides, she's still at Pan Rugui's residence. If Zhen bring her to the palace now, wouldn't I get a scolding?" Xuanglu let out an "oh, my," and smiled. Then said, "Your Majesty, you are the emperor. Your Majesty have the final say within this palace. How would those officials on the outside know what eunuchs in the inner palace does? We'll do it secretly." Li Jianheng instantly felt his spirits soar. Not even eating the candy anymore, he said, "Secretariat Elder Hai won't know. No one will know." Xuanglu shuffled forward on his knees. "Your Majesty is our master." "He isn't. Us slaves run errands for your Majesty. If your Majesty doesn't want to let anyone know, then no one will know." "Great." Li Jianheng clapped his hands. "Great, Zhen finally found an opportunity. Go quickly, the sooner the better. Bring Muru in. Pan Rugui is going to die. Remaining in that compound will only be inviting bad luck." Asterisk asterisk asterisk. It rained again when Xiao Qiye left the palace. For no apparent reason, he felt restless and irritable. The zeal and drive he had before the autumn hunt seemed to have dissipated overnight. He did not even want to draw his blade at this moment. Chen Yang and Zhao Hui came to pick him up, and Xiao Qiye got into the waiting horse carriage. Halfway through their journey back, Xiao Qiye suddenly lifted the curtain and said, "Tell father and De Gur that I won't be going back tonight." Without waiting for both men to respond, he jumped off the carriage and headed towards Donglong Street without taking anything with him. "He's gone drinking again." Zhao Hui got off the carriage as well and said to Chen Yang, "You head back and inform His Highness and Xiao Shi Sui. I'll follow the young master. It wouldn't look good for him to get drunk and make a scene during a time when the nation is in mourning." Chen Yang said, "In just the time it takes for you to say all these, you would have already lost sight of him. Since the viceroy doesn't want anyone to follow, then, let him be." Zhao Hui was Xiao Jiming's deputy general, while Chen Yang was Xiao Qiye's deputy general. Although both of them were members of the Xiao clan, the subject of their consideration were ultimately different. Zhao Hui was more like the older brother. He turned his head in the rain. Sure enough, he could no longer see Xiao Qiye's figure. With the authority tokens of the Jinyi Wei revoked, its subordinates were all temporarily assigned to the imperial army to serve as patrols. Shenzhequan just finished his rounds for the night. As he returned home, he passed by the back alley of Shangyun Villa on Donglong Street. Because it was just a drizzle, he did not hold up an umbrella. As he was walking along the road, he suddenly heard a bout of puking sounds before him. Then, a courtesan wearing wooden clogs and no socks trotted out in pursuit of the person who had been throwing up. The latter gently fended her off. Xiao Qiye propped himself up against the wall and pointed at the back door to motion to the woman to stay away from him. The courtesans of Shangyun Villa were all well acquainted with him. They knew that he would not let others touch him while he was drunk, so this courtesan folded a handkerchief and lay it at the side and said in a gentle voice, "Second young master Xiao, please go in again once you feel better. We'll have a hot broth prepared for you." Xiao Qiye did not respond. The sound of wooden clogs receded into the distance, and he squatted down. His stomach was churning so badly it was hard to bear. This was the way a man should live, eat, drink and make merry as if in a drunken stupor. He had only this one way out. Out of nowhere, he felt a slight pressure his back. Xiao Qiye suddenly looked back with a stare so cold it could unnerve anyone. Upon seeing who it was, he thought for a while before asking, "Why did you kick me?" Shenzhequan said without blinking, "I didn't." Xiao Qiye backhandedly touched his own back for a moment. Then he pulled at his clothes and said stubbornly, "This is evidence of your guilt." Shenzhequan scrutinized him for a moment and said, "Have you drunk yourself to a stupor, second young master Xiao?" Xiao Qiye said, "Do I look like a fool?" Without waiting for Shenzhequan to reply, he answered his own question. "I'm not a fool." As he smelt that the other man was reeking of alcohol, Shenzhequan said, "Don't block my way. I want to go home." Xiao Qiye turned his head back and stared blankly for a moment before saying to the wall, "Don't block my way. I want to go home, too." Shenzhequan was about to laugh when he heard him continue. "If I can't go home, then you can forget about going home as well." End chapter. Note: during the Ming Dynasty, the Supreme Court was known as the joint trial by the three judicial offices, whose verdicts had to be submitted to the emperor for approval. The three judicial offices were the Ministry of Justice, the Court of Judicial Review, and the Chief Surveillance Bureau. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 1, I Was an Outcast Liege. Chapter 29, Fate. Shenzhequan said, "Oh." Not getting the answer he wanted, Xiao Qiye looked back at him and asked, "Why aren't you refuting me?" Shenzhequan raised his hands to open up the umbrella and said, "I don't have a father or a brother back at home. No acquaintances either. So what's the point of going back?" Xiao Qiye picked up the handkerchief to wipe away the water on the back of his neck. He stood up and said, "Oh right. The Prince of Jiangxing's residence in Dun province has already been cleared out. With your identity, you will only be cursed by all if you go back. That's why when it comes to fate," Shenzhequan looked at Xiao Qiye quietly for a pause before continuing, "you will only suffer if you don't get reincarnated into a good life." Xiao Qiye did not look at him as he lifted his arm to rub away the raindrops on his forehead. Then he said, "Then why are you still alive?" Shenzequan smiled and said, too many people wanted me to die. But how could I feel at ease myself if I were to fulfill the wish of others? Xiao Qiye said, the way for you to survive is to remain in the temple of penitence. Shenzequan took 2 steps to bypass the water puddle on the ground and said, if I remain in the temple of penitence, then you will think that getting executed by decapitation is how I should end up. Xiao Qiye, even if you try your best to hide it, you are already used to looking down from above. You are no different from the people who look down on you today. And all those eyes on you now, are tormenting you. He laughed out loud and patted Xiao Qiye on the back with a palm. I seek to live. You seek to die. The Xiao clan once had me trapped, and now the Li clan does the same to you. Isn't the ways of this world strange? The bird in the cage longs for its former woods, while the fish in the pond misses the deep pool. Your lot in life has been laid bare from start to end. If you can't go back, then you are nothing but a loser with lofty aspirations but cannot act on them. The most regrettable thing in this world is to train a wolf to turn into a dog. How long can your fangs remain sharp in the Chu capital? You followed me during the autumn hunt. Xiao Qiye turned his head to the side to look at him, and saved my life just for this moment of gratification. I am but an insignificant nobody. Shenzequan said softly, even if I didn't show up, you will still live. Exactly what? Xiao Qiye's inebriation had worn off by this point as he asked, are you up to repaying a debt of gratitude? The brim of Shenzequan's umbrella sheltered Xiao Qiye. This was how close he was to the latter. Repaying all of you for your mercy in not killing me. Xiao Qiye suddenly grabbed Shenzequan by the collar and said, I thought you had repented and turned over a new leaf to become a better person. What wrong did I do? The glint in Shenzequan's eyes was even colder than the autumn rain. He pressed in a step closer, almost sticking to Xiao Qiye, and asked, what is my crime? Didn't you take a look at various cities of the Duan province when you climbed your way out of Hashi sinkhole? Xiao Qiye tightened his grip. Everyone in the 8 cities was massacred. When the hooves of horses trod through the city gates, all the blood that splashed up was the people's blood. Shen Wei's troops were defeated. Shenzequan finally tore off that mask of his, exposing his burning hatred. 40,000 people from Zongbo were buried in Hashi sinkhole. I lost my elder brother and Shinyang to death that day. Where does my fault lie in this? Shen Wei deserves to be killed. Xiao Qiye reached the end of his limit, too. He suddenly pressed Shenzequan up against the wall and said, Shen Wei should be put to death. You are a Shen too. So how are you blameless? The oil paper umbrella tumbled to the ground as Xiao Qiye slammed Shenzequan into the wall and lifted him until his toes could barely touch the ground. Shenzequan lifted his leg to stomp on Xiao Qiye's chest. Xiao Qiye retreated a few steps back in pain, but he did not release his grip as he pulled Shenzequan by the collar and flung him to the ground. The pattering rain suddenly intensified and came pouring down in torrents. A burst of crashes rang out from the dark lane, as overturned odds and ends were trampled underfoot. The courtesans of Shangyun Villa who had been waiting for Xiao Qiye were startled by the commotion. All of them held onto the doors with their wooden clogs in hands to look. Why did they start fighting? The madam of the brothel hurriedly draped on her outer garment and slipped on her wooden clogs to rush over. My dear masters, talk it over if you have something to say. This isn't worth exchanging blows over. Shenzequan got on top of Xiao Qiye and punched his head aside. Xiao Qiye grabbed Shenzequan's wrist and tugged him hard towards himself. Licking the blood between his teeth with the tip of his tongue, he said, neither you nor I shall dream of having an easy time. The madam of the brothel had already called out the hired help and they joined forces to drag both men apart. Xiao Qiye jerked his arm, and those tall and strapping hirelings felt the webs between their thumbs and forefingers going numb. However, Xiao Qiye did not pounce again. He raised his fingers to wipe at the wound on his face and said, Scram. Seeing that the situation did not look good, the madam of the brothel motioned for the hirelings to hurry over to the prince's residence to call for help. Who would have expected Xiao Qiye to say, "I'll break the legs of whoever dares to alert my father"? The madam's voice softened and she took the opportunity to say, "What is this about?" Second young master Xiao has always shown tenderness towards the fairer sex. Why did you frighten the ladies tonight? It is common for gentlemen to swap pointers with one another after a bout of drinking. Let's forget it and bury the hatchet with a smile. All right. Xiao Qiye rose to his feet, he took off his dirty robe and threw it to the madam. Then he said, "Go in." Holding his outer robe, the madam attempted to persuade him. Second young master Xiao, it's so cold outside. Her voice trailed off as she lost the courage to let out even a squeak. She waved her hand quietly at the courtesans and led them back inside. However, the door was not closed tight this time. All the courtesans clung to the sides of the door and windows to steal a peek. Shen Zequin picked up the umbrella. He was so filthy all over that he was barely recognizable. He had been drenched by the rain, and strands of his hair stuck to his cheeks. The contrast of black on white made his fair skin look even whiter. "Next time," Shen Zequin said, "go right to my door if you want to look for me. I won't necessarily make a trip through this alley even in 800 years. If I knew you would be passing by," Xiao Qiye said, "I would not come here even if I have to puke all over inside." Shen Zequin smiled mockingly and said, "Then it must really be a small world for enemies to meet on such a narrow path." Xiao Qiye walked up to him. "I'll watch you closely from now on. You can hardly look after yourself and you still want to concern yourself over me." Shen Zequin raised his umbrella and pulled apart the distance between them. Old institutions die hard. Just one autumn hunt, and you want to bring the Hua clan down to their knees. You are really delusional. You'd better find a way to preserve your life. Xiao Qiye pressed his chest against the umbrella and looked askance at him. "How long can you live without the backing of the Empress Dowager? There is already a new master sitting in the imperial court." Shen Zequin said, "Isn't it time for you to change all those assumptions you have been taking for granted, too? You can't kill any of them." Xiao Qiye said, "The ones who owe you are the Bianchi cavalry and Shen Wei." "Whatever you say," Shen Zequin draped on that layer of tame outer coat again. He closed his umbrella and said gently to Xiao Qiye, "I'll follow it all right." That indescribable rage within Xiao Qiye suddenly bubbled up. He said, "Sure. Then you'll stay with me tonight. You already sleep under the bed canopy of a sweet, tender lady." Shen Zequin said, "And you still have the fetish to share your bed with another man?" "I'm sorry, but I don't." No matter how Xiao Qiye looked at him now, he looked as though he was up to no good, so he said, "What are you shying away from? Didn't you say, whatever I say? Are you," Shen Zequin pointed to his head, "out of your mind? All the idlers of the Jinyi Wei have been assigned to the imperial army." Xiao Qiye said, "So who is the one out of his mind?" Shen Zequin paused for a moment and said, "What does the viceroy want me to do?" There was still a red imprint remaining on Xiao Qiye's cheek. The hostility between his eyebrows dissipated and he took on the appearance of a lazy slacker. He turned around to sit on the veranda under the eaves and pointed to his own boots. Shen Zequin unhurriedly moved the corners of his lips at him and said, "Sure." Early in the morning the next day, Chen Yang came to pick him up, and was stunned when he saw Shen Zequin hugging the Longli blade at the entrance of Shangyun Villa. Shen Zequin, who had been leaning against the door, straightened up his body and bowed a greeting to Chen Yang. Chen Yang had an ill sense of foreboding for an instant and asked, "Shen, why is the Red Cavalry here? Ji Lei is still in prison and has not yet been sentenced." Shen Zequin said, "The Jinyi Wei are temporarily serving the imperial army under the viceroy's supervision." Chen Yang looked at his calm face and felt a chill ran down his spine. He gave a slight nod of his head and hurried up the stairs. Shen Zequin watched him go upstairs. At the same time, the madam of the brothel was coming down the stairs while lifting the hem of her skirt. She said tenderly, "You haven't eaten yet, right? You haven't changed out of those dirty clothes of yours either." Ling Ting. The courtesan upstairs leaned against the railing with a tired expression and said, "Why is madam still calling out for Ling Ting? You are always forgetting that little lass has been redeemed." The madam suddenly realized her mistake and said, "I have gotten used to calling for her. Go and bring some food over for this Red Cavalry Excellency." When Chen Yang entered, he saw Xiao Qi still sprawled on the couch sleeping. There was no one around attending to him, so Chen Yang went forward and called out to him softly, "Viceroy, Viceroy." Xiao Qi wearily buried his face and slept for a little longer. He suddenly sat up and asked, "Why is it you? Where is Shen Lanzhou? He's keeping watch downstairs." "Viceroy, what happened to your face?" Chen Yang asked in astonishment. "Got punched while I was hunting." Xiao Qi got off the couch and moved his shoulders and arms. He asked, "Did De Gur ask you to come for me?" "It was His Highness the Prince." Chen Yang said, "We received information early in the morning. The Shakia Mutual Trade Market was looted by the Bianchi cavalry last night. We still need to enter the palace later to discuss this matter in detail. Secretariat Elder High has summoned the Ministry of War and the Ministry of Revenue for a convention. Us from Liege have to deploy our troops again." Xiao Qi wiped his face with water and immediately stepped out of the door. When he headed downstairs, he saw Shen Zequin with the courtesan. He strode a few steps down, grabbed the small plate from behind, and tossed a pastry into his mouth. Shen Zequin looked at him and said, "Eat slowly. No one can save you in time if you choke to death." Xiao Qi swallowed it clean. He smiled at him and put his arm on his shoulder. Leading him outside, he said, "Lanzhou." Shen Zequin looked at him. Xiao Qi said frivolously, "Why do you still hold an overnight grudge? I've already forgotten all about it after a night's sleep. Let's go. This second young master will take you along to look for fun." Shen Zequin swatted his hand away with the sheath of his blade and said, "Second young master Xiao, stop taking advantage of the chance to touch the back of my neck." ******. Many people gathered in Mingli Hall. Liege remained seated on the dragon throne, not daring to move. He first tried to figure out Hai Lianji's expression with his eyes, then shifted them over to the others while trying his best to look dignified and imposing. Now that the brush-holding director of the Directorate of Ceremonies position is vacant, this old subject will present all the various ministries' accounts to His Majesty once they are sent to the Grand Secretariat before signing off on them. Hai Lianji first said to Liege, "What does your Majesty think of the accounts last night?" Liege had been listening to the pipa with a beautiful woman in his arms last night. So, when Hai Lianji kowtowed to him, he immediately shifted his buttocks with a guilty conscience and said, "Fine. It's fine." Shueziaozuo, who had been kneeling behind Hai Lianji, initially had on a neutral expression. But he furrowed his brows on hearing these words. Hai Lianji waited for a while, but when he noticed that Liege had no intention of saying anything further, he said, "Autumn is cold and frosty at present. If Liege is to deploy troops, then they must report to Chu capital the military salaries and provisions to be paid in advance. Your lordship, how much do you need this time?" Xiao Fangxiu smiled and said, "I have been ill and out of commission for a long time. All the military affairs have long been entrusted to Jiming. Jiming, tell Secretariat Elder High how much money we lack." Xiao Jiming kowtowed and said, "The 12 tribes of Bianchi looted the market at this time because winter snow is about to fall. The grain supply of the various Bianchi tribes have run out, so they could only loot the mutual trade market. If this were in the past, the military fields of Liege can provide for itself and would not need assistance with army supplies. But the former emperor passed away this year, so it's likely that the 12 Bianchi tribes is thinking of taking advantage of our vulnerability right now. If we are to mobilize troops, then we must not only expel them out of our territory but also station our troops there to guard it. I have already submitted the required sum to the Ministry of Revenue. The newly appointed Minister of Revenue took out the memorial. Xuanglu presented it to Liege. Liege looked at it for a moment and said, 1,200,000 taels. What's so hard about it? As long as the soldiers don't go cold and hungry. The Minister of Revenue, Qiang Jin, was a little embarrassed as he spoke. Your Majesty does not know it, but we still have yet to make up for last year's deficiency. The state treasury does not have that much money at such a short notice. Liege said, then, 1 million taels should be fine, right? Qiang Jin kowtowed and said, during the autumn hunt, the mobilization of the 8 great training divisions cost us 230,000 taels, and the former emperor spent 540,000 taels. The remaining money in the state treasury still has to be used to pay out salary arrears to all the senior and junior officials. It would soon be the end of the year, and the civil officials all need to celebrate the new year. We definitely do not have 1 million taels. Your Majesty, we can only allocate 600,000 taels to Liege's armored cavalry. Liege truly never expected there to be a day he would be poor as an emperor. He had wanted to do Liege a favor, and doing so could placate Xiao Qi, too. Who would have thought that he would have no money? This suddenly put him in such an awkward spot that he wanted so much to dig his way under the table. Instead, he merely uttered a few vague sounds of acknowledgements. Ming Glihal went silent for a moment. Shueziaozuo suddenly piped up, Your Majesty, this humble subject has a suggestion. As though he had seen his savior, Liege said, do speak and tell Zhen. Shueziaozuo said, when the Hua faction was in power, they put a price on some sinecures and welcomed everyone who could pay up. The ice respect they collected every year were all large sums. Then, there's Pan Rugui who took advantage of the loopholes in procurement to amass wealth blatantly. Both men are now in prison. Why not search both the Hua's and Pan's residences and confiscate their possessions to subsidize the military funds? The second young master of the Shi clan, Shi Hongxian, has already made amends and submitted a document to the Court of Judicial Review yesterday to report on Shi Guan raising his own personal army in private. He even leased out the Shi clan's residence in the Chu capital to repay the empty accounts of the 8 great training divisions while Shi Guan was in office. The moment Liege heard they were going to raid the residences, he instantly showed interest. Eager to give it a try, he said, sure. Zhen have been thinking of this, too. Hai Lianji hesitated for a moment and then said, that's not appropriate. The Court of Judicial Review's retrial is not concluded yet. How can we bypass the law and carry out the sentence straight away? Shueziaozuo said, it's an emergency. We do not have a choice. The Chu capital can wait for the retrial, but the Bianchi cavalry will not. We cannot let Liege's armored cavalry fight a war on empty stomachs. Hai Lianji was still hesitating, but Liege had already slapped the table to give his approval. When they came out, Xiao Jiming said to Qizuyan, who had been silent the whole time earlier, how is the Bianjun commandery holding up? Qizuyan raised her head to look up at the rain beyond the eaves and said, Lu Guangbei is still at Bianjun, so the 12 tribes of Biancha will naturally not make a move. But Liege is lacking a chief commander, that makes it inevitably tricky for you. Xiao Jiming stood for a moment and sighed, it's hard to come by men with military talents. They aren't easy to find. Qizuyan said, no matter how the situation changes in the Chu capital, it's the duty of the commanders and generals to protect his home and defend his country. Jiming, military talents are hard to come by, and it isn't easy to nurture and train them. Liege is a heavily fortified land at the De province's frontier. It will only prove to be detrimental to Liege if you still don't choose a successor. It was the original aspiration of each and every one of them to be a valiant general of one side and to become an impregnable fortress of the De province. However, a man would eventually age. Entrusting and tethering the lives of an entire army to one person could be overlooked if it was just for a few years, but to let it continue for more than a decade, or even a few decades, and the Liege's armored cavalry would turn into one that could not do without Xiao Jiming. If one day, the Liege's armored cavalry were to lose Xiao Jiming, then what would become of the army that had reigned supreme on the battlefield for decades without any blemish to its reputation? I know you have high hopes for Ye. Qizuyan descended the stairs and turned her head back unhurriedly. But he is destined to never fly out of the Chu capital. You put your eyes on him. Do you think he never noticed it all these years even though you never spoke of it? The more expectation you have for him, the more agony he'll be in. Liege is not his wings but his cage. Jiming, you and I have been friends for many years. Let me give you some of advice, choose someone else. The palace eaves in the far distance were all shrouded in fog. A lone crow cawed a few times and silence descended once more. End chapter.